the city council and convene a public hearing for the purpose of receiving public comment with respect to the proposed incentive plan for construction of housing in the municipality targeted to house existing or new workers for the city of McCook, the incentive plan, which plan would authorize the use of tax increment financing for the construction of workforce housing in the redevelopment areas of the city of McCook, and ask the city attorney to act as the hearing officer.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor vote yea, opposed nay.
I votes cast yea, no votes cast nay.
There are 6 exhibits being offered for this public hearing. Exhibit number 1 is the city manager's report, that's 1 page. Exhibit number 2 is a notice of public hearing, 1 page. Exhibit number 3 is the certified mailing addresses for notice of public hearings mailed, that's 5 pages. Exhibit number 4 is the city manager's report of the April 1st, 2024 McCook City Council meeting, approving resolution 2024-05, adopting and approving a workforce housing incentive plan pursuant to the Nebraska Community Development Law, 1 page. Exhibit number 5 is a workforce housing incentive plan for the city of McCook, Nebraska, 5 pages. Exhibit number 6, resolution number 2024-05, workforce housing incentive plan, that's 3 pages. I'll accept exhibits 1 through 6 into evidence. Take comments from city staff before opening up to public comment. Nate?
Recently, we've been approached by some developers inquiring whether or not the city of McCook allowed TIF for workforce housing projects. I was not very familiar with that as a qualifying use. So we spoke with our attorney, Andrew Willis, and kind of went through the steps in the Nebraska development law just to make sure that if we were to do so, we were following the correct steps. It is a fairly recent piece of legislation that was passed and adopted that allows for workforce housing to utilize or to be considered as a qualifying expense for tax increment financing projects. Prior in time, the projects that you have typically seen were projects related to commercial ventures where items were addressed through the use of TIF that would be related to blight and substandard designation that had already been received. I always told people the easy rule of thumb was to say, okay, if there is a public purpose for the project, then it probably qualifies for tax increment financing. And so it may go towards, dirt moving, at a site that needs to see some improvement. Or it could go towards sidewalk expansion, or it could go towards utility extensions. But it's typically something that's going to be an exterior project that receives qualification under the Nebraska Development Law. In the last couple of sessions, the legislature wanted to make sure that it was extended out to workforce housing projects, primarily because we all know that the state of Nebraska has a shortage of workforce housing options. As defined, workforce housing is typically, for purposes of the state of Nebraska, it's going to be houses that are valued at $300,000. I should say that cost no more than $300,000 per unit, or if it's a rental housing unit, it'd be $235,000 per unit, so like a duplex or something along those lines, if it were to be used for as a rental property. So kind of going through the Nebraska development law, in order to have these kind of projects considered as TIF eligible projects, an incentive plan has to be adopted by the council via resolution. And there were 4 things that need to be included in that incentive plan, or that need to be included in order to make sure that workforce housing is an eligible expense. First, there has to be a housing study that was completed within the past 60 months, which that was done in 2022. MEDC actually was the entity that completed the study, and we've utilized that for various projects since that time. The second thing that needs to occur is an incentive plan needs to be prepared for the construction of housing in the city of McCook, targeted at housing existing and new workers. And the incentive plan is in front of you for your review. And then you have to have the public hearing to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak on the incentive plan. And then fourth, after the public hearing, the council has to find through resolution that the plan is necessary to prevent the spread of blight and substandard conditions within the city of McCook, that it's going to provide additional safe and suitable housing for individuals and families employed in the city of McCook, and will not result in the unjust enrichment of any individual or company, which that will be determined based upon the redevelopment plan. There's going to have to be a schedule that's completed to ensure that there is an unjust enrichment. You know, it's one of those things where you have to take a look at the project, figure out exactly what would be a fair return on investment. The council will make those decisions with each plan as they come forward, and then determine whether or not that meets the standard that would be accepted throughout the state. And so we actually spoke with Andrew Willis about that last week, the TIF attorney. He said, yes, I can help out with that to make sure that we always meet that criteria. So going through, looking at the incentive plan, like I said, we've got our housing study that has been included in here. It's going to extend to workforce housing. The eligible area is going to be within a redevelopment area that's been approved by the council. We have to show that there's a necessity for the incentive plan to occur. Obviously, you know, when you look at our need for housing, it's pretty clear that this is an area that we need to make sure that we address. As I mentioned, there can be no unjust enrichment. And then obviously, as far as a fit, it's got to fit the city of McCook. And so these will be brought forward to the council on a case-by-case basis, and then the council will make a determination. We'll still use the redevelopment plan process. There'll be a redevelopment contract that will be then forwarded to the CDA for approval. Council will approve that as well too. That part's the same, but because this is a standalone allowable use, TIF use, with its own set of rules, we just need to make sure that the council passes this incentive plan to assure that we're in compliance with state law.
Okay.
Any questions for city staff before I open it up to public comment? Do we have any public comment on this agenda item? Come on up, introduce yourself.
I'm Amanda Engel. I'm the Director of Housing Development with MEDC. So I've been in conversation with Nate on this utilization of TIF for workforce housing. I became aware of it last year in speaking with other communities. We all know, as he mentioned, about housing, that we have to be creative in our approach to how we're going to solve this issue that is statewide and countrywide. And our legislation has, come out with this as a creative approach. And as I'm speaking with developers across the state or builders locally, everybody is always asking, well, what can you do to help us? How can we help you? And this is an additional tool in McCook's tool belt that will be of benefit to the community and entice builders to want to build within McCook. And we have already seen some interest, as Nate had alluded to, through our discussions of bringing this up for topics. So I hope that you consider it. As Nate mentioned about our housing study, the majority of the need that our housing study identified is for workforce housing. So we are, I'm always actively working to look at how we can better our workforce housing situation. We have a rural workforce housing fund that we're actively utilizing right now and hope to be continuing to use in perpetuity. But again, this would just be a really beneficial tool in the city's tool belt that can be used by builders and developers that want to build within McCook.
Yeah, we're seeing some positive momentum, but we've got a lot more that we need to do. And if you read that study, it's clear we're short probably about 170, 180 units.
Oh yeah, 187.
187 units, so it's one more tool that we can use.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda.
Any other public comment? Hearing none, I recommend before we leave the public hearing, usually when I do my own exhibits in preparation for a city council, I do it myself without referencing Leanne's marked exhibits. This time when I did it, I actually misnumbered them. There are actually only 5 exhibits being offered. I'm gonna redo those. Exhibit number 1 is a notice of public hearing. Exhibit number 2 is a certified notices mailed to the required public entities. Exhibit number 3 is the city manager's report. Exhibit number 4 is the proposed workforce housing incentive plan. Exhibit number 5 is the proposed resolution. All right, now we can reconvene.
I move we recess the public hearing and reconvene as a city council.
I'll second that.
We've got a motion and a second to recess as a city council and to reconvene. Recess the public hearing and reconvene as city council. All those in favor will be with the lights. We
Lights?
gotta do it with the lights.
If we don't know.
Yeah.
5 votes cast yea, no votes cast nay.
I move to approve resolution number 2024-05, adopting and approving a workforce housing
Yeah.
indent
I
plan?
don't think.
Thank you, incentive plan. Look at that, really weird, pursuant to the Nebraska Community Development Law.
I'll second that.
We've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion, council, further? Okay, all those in favor vote yea, opposed nay.
Okay, I'm locked up.
Lights again?
5 votes cast yea, no votes cast nay.
Okay, the next item is the